Hello, hello, hello. It is Thursday. It is just about 5:30, and it's time for Let's Talk Power Live. So, what have you been up to? It's spring, it's sprung, but it's still cold. I'm excited to have you join us this evening. What are we doing here? We're here talking about power in education. Power in education is a real thing. It is something that governs decisions. It governs the smog in the air, and it's something that we talk about here on Let's Talk Power Live in real and actionable ways. I'm Dr. Tangi, and I'm the CEO of Liaison Educational Partners, where our work centers education through the lens of power at the intersection of instruction, culture, and curriculum. And so tonight, we really want to have this conversation around power and assessments and the coherence in assessments. Because here's what we know is going on. This is assessment season. And we know that assessment season reveals something very important about our schooling processes. Yes, it's going to give you some outcomes, 100%. You're going to get outcomes. You're going to get data about how your students are doing. But you're also going to get something else. You're going to get a read on how aligned your instruction, your culture, and your assessments have been all year. And that's something that we don't always ask the question about. And so this week, we're going to really delve into what it looks like to have a coherent system that aligns both your instruction, your culture, not both, well, actually all three, your instruction, your culture, as well as your assessments. And, every week I always share with you my definition of power in education. Why? Because repetition sinks it into your head. But before I go any further, I want to ask you a question. Have you subscribed to this channel? Let's Talk Power Live. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button. But I want to hear from you. Leave us a comment tonight. And I have some exciting news. Let's Talk Power is going to turn 2 years old in May. And we are moving towards a goal. We want to have 200 subscribers to celebrate our second birthday. Won't you help us? Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Invite two people. Share this channel with them. Invite them to come and ask them to subscribe. If you are already a subscriber, thank you so much. We appreciate your support. If you are part of the 90+% of folks who are kind of hanging out in the shadows, come be a part of this channel where we do what others may not do as overtly as we do it. We talk directly about the dynamics of power and the impact on student learning, on leading, on education as a whole. So go ahead, hit the like button, hit the share button, and leave us a comment. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what power in education is about. And I'm going to share that definition with you. Here it is. So, in education, well, where is it? You know what happens sometimes? Your computer, I love technology until I don't. There we go. All right. So education is the instrument of democratic designs, and it is no less the instrument of power, the control of information, the shaping of understanding, and the influence of judgment are critical elements common to democratic design, power theory, and educational philosophy. Why am I talking about that now? Because we are in a democratic crisis, shall I say, out loud for others to hear in the background. 100%. Power is at the center of so much of what we do. And unfortunately, in education, it is not something that we speak specifically and overtly about. And so it really does give me pleasure to have this conversation with you. The next thing people always ask me about is, okay, Dr. Marshall, if that's what power in education is about, what is instructional power? So let me give you that definition right now. Understanding your instructional power. Instructional power can be understood as an educator's use of their state, district, and building ascribed job-related authority to afford or constrain a student's access to learning. That's what it is. What does it mean? It means that the actions you take have the ability to impact whether or not a student has access to opportunities or those doors get closed. That is the power in there. So those are my definitions. I share them every week and I'm excited to do so. This week, as assessment season deepens and or probably intensifies for many of you, as I said, you're going to know something about your systems. And I want to bring to our stage tonight a person who is more than qualified, expert level on this idea of decision making, assessments, and coherence. Because what we are seeing is that districts, and not just districts, because districts do take their marching orders from the state level. We know that they are what his organization, Education First, calls a test pile. And in a moment, I'm going to bring him on after I tell you who he is. And it's going to be a real interesting conversation to really understand this convergence and this confluence of the assessments that kids are experiencing, the learning and the instruction that they may get, and what's happening on the assessment level. So I want to share with you who's coming to join me tonight. We have my friend, Josh Parker. He is senior consultant in Education First. He has been an instructional coach, a teacher, a consultant. He's been a facilitator all across the country, and he's taught at the famed Dunbar High School in DC. If you know anything about Black history, you understand that having somebody from Dunbar High School join this show is, I'm going to call it a coup. So I'm excited to ask Josh Parker to join us today. Josh Parker, welcome to Let's Talk Power Live. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Did forget that. Maryland Teacher of the Year. How did I forget that? I have no idea.
Yes.
Welcome to
No
Let's Talk Power
worries.
Live.
Thank you for having me. Sometimes I forget it myself, so no worries at all. I'm so glad to be joining you with a true pedagogue, as I call you. Your brilliance in this book and your ability to really crystallize instructional power and how it shows up in so many spaces is such a needed conversation. I am proud of you, and I'm happy to be on this call with you.
Oh, thank you so much. So let's go ahead and dig right in, because this is going
Yeah.
to be the fastest 35 minutes of your life, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Right?
I know.
So I
Yeah.
want to dig in. I want to share some data because we get a lot of data. And one of the areas I talk a lot about, and you've heard this conversation and you and I've had it, this concept of, systems being data rich, but information poor, right? We know they get data everywhere. And so let's have this conversation really quickly about these data points, right? Too
Mhm.
many systems have become a test pile. Tools are layered, overlapping, and disconnected from instruction. Coherence means every measure has a clear purpose and clear use. Your work at Education First is central to these data points. So help us understand what is going on in the national landscape from this idea of assessments, instruction, and coherence.
Yeah. So assessments, instruction, and coherence should be all people that are live in the same room. But too often they are scattered across different houses in different cities. And by that, I mean, we have assessments in one part of town, you got instruction in another part of town, and then you got coherence somewhere trying to figure out how to make the two talk to each other. Okay. So what so what ends up happening, is that you have assessments. Let's start with that. So
Right.
you have assessments. Some of them, as you know, there's this is why we call it a test pilot Education First. There's so many of them. It's like a pile. You have screeners, you have diagnostics, which sometimes are the same and sometimes are not. You have unit level tests that are curriculum based. You have then if they get into the multi-tiered support system, you have tests on that. Then you have, if they're getting into a 504, you have tests on that, on to get an IEP. You then have short cycle tests, benchmark assessments. Then you have state level assessments. And So I know.
About
So,
I'm exhausted just listening to that, and the idea
yeah,
that as an educator in a classroom, I lived through that.
yeah.
Wow.
There's so that's all happening, and that's the test pile. And that's not exhaustive, to be
Oh, I
clear.
know.
I
Right.
didn't
It's a
include any of the
shame.
secondary stuff. I didn't include AP exams. I didn't include any of the other stuff. Okay, so you have that going on. But if you recall in when I just talked about all the assessments that we have, only a few of them are what I would call instructionally sensitive, which is to say they
Mm.
are embedded within and responsive to literal classroom instruction. A diagnostic is not instructionally sensitive. It's
It's
just a
it's
diagnostic.
right. It's agnostic to it,
It's
right?
agnostic,
It's
right?
agnostic.
Okay, the
Absolutely.
SAT, all these things, AP, right?
Agnostic.
So they're agnostic to what's happening in the classroom. So now, what are we testing, right? That's a question.
That's a question. And my question
Okay,
is, so
yeah.
what are we testing? I love that
Mm-hmm.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to the pile, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
even the exhaustive pile.
Nope.
What are kids learning? Is there time
Right.
for learning?
Right. Correct. Right. Okay. Like there are whole schools, and shout out to Dunbar always. There are whole schools, and Dunbar is not implicated in this that I know of, but that will shut down instruction a month before state exams.
Now. They're doing it
And
now.
it's they're doing it now. Oh, it's April. That's right.
It's
Exactly.
April.
Okay. So
It's
right.
April.
Okay. Right. So they shut down, and now they're just going back and they're reviewing whatever it is they may not have taught. So you add that in, plus the winter break, plus all the spring break, like so the instruction is truncated, right? So we talked about assessments. Now let's
Yeah.
get into instruction. Instruction is now truncated to maybe 6 to 7 months in a year. And that's assuming that time on task is consistent. That's assuming that there's specific connection between the teacher and the students and the content. That's assuming no long absences of the student or the teacher. And that's assuming that the teacher has pedagogical content expertise to cover the adequate amount of pedagogy and content in the time provided. That's 7 months, give or take, okay, of instruction, provided all of those conditions are met. So the instruction then, having been truncated, right? Hopefully there's a high quality curriculum that the instruction
Somewhere,
is
right.
aligned to, right? Somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
but it is moored to, tethered to, connected to their own embedded assessments within the curriculum. Okay,
Absolutely.
so I have instruction that's tied to those assessments.
Right.
So if I'm a teacher that is trying to make sure that my student understands grade level content, then actually those are the assessments that matter most.
Most. Those are the ones that matter most. And yet, I
Mm-hmm.
was working with a school district in Massachusetts when they you talked about benchmarks, right? So you have state level, and then you have
Yep.
system level at the
Mm-hmm.
district level. They
Mm-hmm.
gave benchmarks. They gave 4 year. The first benchmark, which makes sense, has a certain number of grade level standards from the previous grade.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, right? Because you're going to
Makes
get
sense.
into the
Yep.
grade in the year. And every single other assessment has not grade level standards from the previous unit, from the previous year.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
I talked to the superintendent. I said, stop that. Like, you got to
Wow.
cut that out right now. Like, you got to
Yeah.
cut that out
Yeah.
yesterday, right? You
Wow.
have to make sure that, from the second quarter forward, every single assessment that your students are getting are on grade level, because
That's
at
right.
the end of the year,
That's what they were
your
beginning.
your state assumes, the state makes the rightful assumption that students are being instructed and given access to regularly scheduled all the time grade level instruction. And as a parent,
Absolutely.
don't you expect that too? You want
Yeah.
your kids, and you and I have both been in
Mm-hmm.
PD sessions where we have said, if your kid's in third grade, but you're teaching second grade and they get assessed on third grade, what are you creating? Again,
You are in real time.
in real
Doctor and
time.
Dr. Reed Marshall, this is so pressing at this particular time because I will tell you, let's go to the third part. So we got assessments, we got instruction. Now let's talk about coherence. So
Ugh.
when we think about coherence, we think about a link. Okay, a link.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
let's go with what we just talked about. We have a curriculum that we're assuming is high quality. That, by the way, is an assumption that needs to be verified. So let's just say that.
Verified.
Okay,
Right.
verified. All
Right.
right. So let's
Right.
just say we have that. Then we also have the curriculum embedded assessments. Okay. Those are the ones that matter most when
Right.
done well, connected to a
Mm-hmm.
high quality instructional material. Okay.
Instructional. Right.
But Dr. Reed Marshall, here's the last piece. Are those questions, what is the degree of alignment, talking about the link between those assessments and the state level assessments?
That's the question. And you and I both know, Josh, that
Exactly.
the way curriculum is written,
Mm-hmm.
it cannot meet the demands of every single one of the near 13,000
That's
school
correct.
districts in this country
That's correct. That's correct.
and or the 50 states,
That's correct.
right? It
That's
can't.
correct.
And
Mm-hmm.
it'll most curriculum providers to developers will tailor to the big three: Texas,
Mm-hmm.
Florida,
Mm-hmm.
California,
Mm-hmm.
somewhat New York,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely they'll tailor to those three because of the sheer volume and size. But
That's right.
the other 47, what have we got out here?
Such a
we
pressing
got the
point.
wild, we got the wild, wild west out
The
here.
Wild Wild West, okay? Not the World Wide Web, the Wild
No,
Wild
we
West.
got the wild, wild west out here.
Do you remember the Dr. Reed Marshall? Do you remember the old telephone game? Remember that game
Yes,
where
yes,
okay,
yes,
remember that
yes,
I would say
yes,
something and then I would try to
yes.
like the message would
Mm-hmm.
get to the end. So I would say something like the red fox is running through the garden, and by the time it gets to the end, it's the Chicago Bulls have won the championship. It's like, wait, what? Okay.
What? Make it all
So
connect.
right.
But
The reason
right,
why
and
the
that's
reason
it.
I'm
Go ahead.
saying that is
Mm-hmm.
because even with high quality instructional material, that high quality instructional material through instructional power, to use your term, can be changed when it is taught to children, so that what the intent was is actually not what the children are being taught. So we're
Bingo.
playing. So sometimes, and when I have not been at my best as a teacher, I have played the game of telephone between a great curriculum and my students. Okay.
Absolutely.
So if that's not
Absolutely.
connected, Dr. Reed Marshall, if that's not connected, then we already know that we're not at grade level with even the curriculum embedded assessments. Okay, now let's stop there. Okay, I was in a school, the state will remain nameless, but I was in a school a year ago.
Right. To
Okay,
protect all the innocent
I
and the
must
guilty.
protect. I must protect
Oh,
all the innocent
everybody.
and the guilty.
And the
Everybody.
guilty.
Okay, and
Everybody. Right. Everybody.
okay. So I was in a state not too long ago, and what we did was a simple exercise. I said, well, here's what I want to do. We're going to do observations. I'm going to live script the observation. Okay. And all I'm going to do is script the questions the teacher is asking. That's all I want to do. That's all I'm going to do. Okay, cool.
We can stop,
I
right?
said,
I already know.
I
I
know,
already
you
know.
know where it's
I already,
going. I
I
know.
already know. I already know. I already know.
So we get to the debrief, and I just list up all the questions. Now they can take notes too. That we're all in there together, so that we put all the questions on there. And I asked them at what grade level these are being asked at. Of course, they were like, "Wow, that's pretty low." I said, "But here's what I want you to do next: line up the question stems from the state assessment that they're about to be tested on in about 3 months." It was like the test was written at a different language than what the kids are hearing. So when we talk
Okay.
about coherence, if
Coherence.
it's not if it's not linked up that way, like if I'm talking Spanish to you all year and then I give you a Chinese test, what do you think you're going to do on that test?
You have stepped inside. I tell people all the time, when you make those decisions, you have stepped inside your instructional power. And, when I give my definition, you have now constrained the access in
That's right.
its most basic format,
That's right.
right? In its
That's
most
correct.
basic format. When you make those decisions, and here's the thing, you and I both, we have been there, we have seen it, we have been in sessions together, we have
Mm-hmm.
commiserated in hallways and on
Mm-hmm.
train platforms.
Facts. Facts. All
Facts.
these are true. It's just
All of
all
these are
true.
true. And we have asked the question, why are we saying we care about the outcomes children produce, and
Mm-hmm.
yet we are inadvertently and sometimes on purpose designing, shall I say the word, inequity,
Yeah.
academic polarization. We are creating these big gaps, and then when the data comes out, we navel gaze at it as though it came up
Yeah.
by itself.
That's right.
And what's
That's right.
interesting about all of this data that we keep seeing is this information.
Mm-hmm.
32% ended
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago behind grade level in at least one subject.
Mm-hmm.
Principals said this, leaders said this.
Mm-hmm.
So all this data, and in high poverty schools with higher percentages of students who are receiving federal funds for, food and assistance in other ways, they're getting 42% ending. 44% started 2023, 2024 behind grade level. So
Mm-hmm.
what's happening here? And what's so interesting about these numbers
Mm-hmm.
is the number of young people who are getting access to the grade level instruction.
Yeah.
So what on earth is going on when we talk
I
about
mean,
this kind of data?
I that data is so concerning to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think um and I think once again it comes down to the instructional decisions that we make, but also, you know, who is holding the line and or holding teachers accountable for their ability and their prep work and their own expertise to ameliorate these gaps. When I see those gaps, I don't just see kids. I
Right.
see the teaching that they're getting.
Getting.
I
Right.
see the environments that
Yes.
they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see
Yeah.
preparation holes. Like
Mm-hmm.
we always talk about an achievement gap, but we don't talk about a preparation gap.
Oh, and what's interesting about that preparation gap with this idea of coherence, right? We both
Mhm.
know that people are using HQIM. I hate acronyms, but we're going to say it anyway, right?
Right,
They're
right.
using high quality instructional materials
Mm-hmm.
as what they believe to be a stopgap measure,
Mm-hmm.
right? But a curriculum is an object that,
Yes.
unless a human acts upon it as the delivery mechanism for it, whether it's high quality or not, doesn't really matter. Because I can
Correct.
have a great curriculum and a teacher who is leaning into the or causing some prep gaps, as you rightfully say,
Mm-hmm.
and that curriculum fall flat. And I can
Mm-hmm.
have a less than stellar curriculum with a teacher who is committed to preparation, who knows their students, who understands what's coming down the road, and that curriculum that might be not so great is going to come alive,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And so
And
yeah,
there is a
go ahead.
level we have to reckon with that, Dr. Reed Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Like um, a NBA size basketball is always going to be an NBA size basketball wherever you go. But
Period.
in my hands versus Steph Curry's hands, it looks different.
Let me tell you
Okay.
what. Let me tell you what. Does it?
Okay.
It looked like a whole different thing.
Yeah,
It's a
a whole
whole
different
different thing.
thing. It's a whole
Not even
different
a
thing.
basketball. It's like a
Right,
whole
right.
different thing.
It's a whole different thing. So a curriculum in the hands of someone who is well prepped with a deep level of content expertise and love for kids, not a love based out of pity, but a
Mm,
love based on expectations, a love based on hope, a love based on a vision of the child that sees them as full and coming with things into the school system, not just coming as empty containers to be filled. When an educator has that love within them, and they love the craft and the art of the teaching, and they prepare, then the curriculum looks different in your hands.
Very different in your hands. It looks like what the framers of a high quality instructional material set envisions for it to be,
That's
and
correct.
we have to be willing to, as you say, name all that. But I just found this other piece of coherence that's really interesting to me as
Yeah, let's
well.
talk about it. Hmm.
This idea that students in what would be considered higher performing classes get 27% more access to grade level materials and instruction than their counterparts who get like 12% access.
Mm,
How is that? Two
nearly
things,
double.
nearly double, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And this idea of the power to determine, well, you're in a class that is high performing, therefore you deserve and can handle
Hmm.
more. But
Hmm.
then we're creating this gap, but we are leaning into remediation so
Hmm.
far,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
That we can't even get kids caught up. So what do we do about those numbers?
Yeah, yeah. I'm reminded of a quote from Julian Bond. Violence is black children going to school for 12 years and
Mm,
receiving 6 years worth of education.
there it is.
So when we think
There it
about
is.
when we think about that as a possibility and as a reality, we have to consider, I'm going to use your term again, how we are wielding our instructional power. Okay. Instructional power is not only sort of a thing, a concept, but it is informed by things.
It is
Your
formed by
instructional power,
things.
that's
Yes.
right. It's
Mm-hmm.
informed by your own
Mm-hmm.
experiences. It's informed by your intellectual curiosity and prep. It's informed by what you
Mm-hmm.
know about the standards. What if we're talking about grade level, and it's informed by how well you know yourself and what biases can show up. My
Can
first
show
year
up.
as a teacher, my first year
Were
as a
you
teacher,
were you terrible as I was terrible. I
terrible,
want to go back and
awful,
find those kids and
awful,
apologize, right?
yeah,
I want to go
awful,
back.
awful,
Hands to
awful.
the sky. I'm done.
Now listen, some of them now are my Facebook friends and they're in their 30s and I feel very old. So there's that. But um for real, seriously. But when I went there, I started out in Baltimore County Public Schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a school, it was out in Dundalk, Maryland. Shout out to Dundalk. And I thought with my middle class education and background that I would step up in there, and they would respect me automatically, and I'll be able to teach them to read just like that. No, ma'am.
No,
Struggled the
no,
whole year.
sir.
Struggled the whole year. Was really hard because I had to increase my understanding of where they were coming from, the values that they bring, how valuable their information was. So I spent the next few years embedding myself in their community. I read different books from Alfred Tatum, from Lisa Delpit, from some of the greats,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right, right.
And then as I deepened that understanding, and then that's when Common Core was just coming
Just coming
into
out. That's
being,
right.
right?
That's around
I
the time when
then
we met,
said,
actually. Yeah.
it's right, that's actually right. So
Mm-hmm.
now, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so now what does the standard mean? What does the standard mean? And then how is the standard being assessed in this curriculum? Is there a match? So I'll talk about coherence now. How does what
Mm-hmm.
the curriculum does, how does that match the prior assessments? How do I make all of this make sense? So when I get that information, and when I know that the kids that I'm teaching come with something and that I need to engage them so they can understand the content, then my teaching began to change. One of the things that I did when I was a department chair several years later was I noticed in a school that I was teaching that there were no quote unquote gifted and talented classes in any grade. Now listen, you can't tell
Stop
me
it. Stop
that
it.
I can go to a
Just can't.
school. Okay,
Stop it.
you can't
You can't.
tell me
You can't.
that I'm in a school and you don't have
Hmm.
kids capable of grade level and above instruction
That's
in
right.
any grade.
In any grade. That's not her. You can't do that. Doesn't
You
happen.
can't do
It's
that.
not a
Doesn't
thing.
happen.
It isn't a thing.
It isn't a thing. So I changed that immediately. And we
Right.
added those classes to every grade. Anybody could come into them. And we then skilled up the teachers to be able to teach well kids who might be grade levels behind. And so when you do that, you open up the access. But
Right.
it's the instructional power,
It
you
is.
know?
It's the you have to know
Mm-hmm.
yourself more deeply than you're willing to delve, right?
That's right. That's
And I forget her name. She's a wonderful work on the excavation of self. She's at Columbia.
right. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'll
Mm-hmm.
find her name. This is part of that excavation of self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding how did you learn about power in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience with authority figures? How did you
Mm-hmm.
experience it in schooling? Because we
Mm-hmm.
all have one. I tell the story of being born on the third row of a Black Baptist church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Talk
those
about it.
they had a look, right? And they had
Yeah.
a look,
Mm-hmm.
and when I went to
Mm-hmm.
teaching out of a retail background, I had that in my head. I had schema about adults and kids, teachers and kids. All that schema came with me until I
Yeah.
hit the wall. Like you said, you hit the wall. I hit the
Hit the
wall.
wall
Kids will tell you about yourself.
immediately, and they
They
have
will,
no problems. They have
because
no problems.
they got, because they're, I say in the book also,
Hmm.
it's a wonder that this whole relationship works in the first place, right?
Yeah,
The
sure.
teacher and the kid don't have any say so in the relationship, right? They're put together and it
Yeah,
just goes on from there until it doesn't,
yeah, that's
and so
correct.
that, this idea of coherence as we deepen
Hmm. Hmm.
assessment season, and you're so right,
Hmm.
things are shut down, like the teaching has stopped, right? And one of the things that we give everybody every week is we give power moves, and this week I want to share with you one of
Okay.
the power moves that I'm thinking about. I want people
Hmm.
to protect learning, right? And what does that look like? Maintain grade level tasks, keep cognitive demand high, make room for student thinking, not just the student doing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Use results to adjust support, not the expectations. This is a move that can get done tomorrow. They
Yeah.
can really sit down and begin the work on doing this power move tomorrow. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, first off, anybody that is watching this live, if you haven't picked up the book yet, I mean, I don't know what you're waiting on,
Thank you.
but
Thank you so
pick up
much.
the book. Excellently written. I love that power move, Dr. Reed Marshall, and I especially love how you have described the power move. Protect learning. Ooh, I love that. I love that phrase so much. One of my colleagues, her name is Michelle Shearer. She was a national teacher of the year several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
She used to do an exercise with her students at the beginning of the year where she says, okay, let's say we took 4 minutes to get ready today.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't in instruction, we weren't learning, we were just taking 4 to 5 minutes, and let's just say over the course of this 45-minute block, with transitions and things, let's just say we spent 15 minutes over the course of a classroom, right? Just getting together, transitioning between not really learning, but just like
Mm-hmm.
getting ready and getting our stuff together. She says, do you know how many days and weeks, if we did that every day, that would account
Every
for
day.
in lost learning?
Every And lost learning. We talk about learning loss for COVID, and we love to talk about lost learning for
We
COVID,
do,
right? Learning loss,
we do,
learning growth.
we do.
Let me tell
Yeah.
you what, Johnny and Ray Ray were losing learning
Talk about it.
way before COVID
Talk
because of
about it.
what you just outlined,
Talk about
right?
it.
We talk about preparation, right?
Yep.
You have a system of
Hmm.
preparation that protects learning, right?
Hmm.
At the door,
Hmm.
right? Do they know what to do when they walk in? Do they
That's
know
right.
how to get Do they know how to get to their seat when they walk in? Is there something for them to do when they walk in before you get there, because you got to be at your door? Is the is the atmosphere, are the conditions created
This is
to
important.
protect learning? And
This
if
is
we're going
important.
to, right, and I just wonder, I
Hmm.
wonder about how, from a leader perspective, from the work that you do,
Hmm.
how do we stop this assessment pile? How do we
Yeah,
stop the
yeah,
test pile? Because, assessment matters, and neither one of us is saying don't, right? Because we understand, we both have kids, and we know that the day you get born, you get measured. We got it, right? That's
yep,
the first thing you get is a score. You get a score, right?
yep,
From 0 to
yep,
10. But
yep.
how do we manage the test pile better so that students can learn, adults don't burn out, and we create the coherence?
So there's a few things here. It's a very intricate web because we didn't get into the assessment pile overnight. So we can't get out of it overnight either.
We can't
So
get
the
out of it.
first thing and certain things are not in our control. So the first
Mm-hmm.
thing we have to focus on when we are reducing the assessment pile is to focus on what we can control. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
First thing we can control is messaging and what we put importance on. So as a school-based administrator, we know that the most instructionally sensitive assessments are those that are curriculum embedded. So the first thing to do is to ensure that there is coherence between the curriculum embedded
Mm-hmm.
assessments and
Mm-hmm.
the state or federal, whatever level assessments. That's the first
That
thing we
that
do. Second
those
thing we
first
do,
things. Yes.
that's the first
Yes.
thing. Second thing we do is we make sure that the language of the work isn't just used by the teacher, but the language of the standards is used by the
By the
students.
students, the language of the discipline, the language
The
of the
language of the
assessment.
discipline
The
is used
language
by the
matters.
student
Students.
within that. So we ensure
Mm-hmm.
that. Number two. Number three, I talked about messaging. We communicate this expectation to teachers, to administrators, to visitors, to parents and caregivers that this is what instruction looks like at this school. At this school, what you will hear are students using academic language every single day. When you come home, you will have vocabulary each month that you can ask them to tell you what it
Mm-hmm.
means because we
Right.
talk about standards and we talk
Standards.
about content knowledge. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what we do.
Next thing you do, you don't discard grades, you don't discard test scores, but you elevate curriculum embedded assessments. So when you do parent teacher student conferences, which should be student co-led and student co-design, you actually emphasize here's how they're doing on the curriculum embedded assessments. Here's
Assessments.
how they're doing. Because
Yes.
remember, first things
Yes.
first, we already made sure that the
Mm-hmm.
curriculum embedded assessments were
Assessments
connected to the
connected
state
to.
level. Okay.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. That's right. That's
Lastly,
right.
so that's changing the assessment pile. And when you do that, you then communicate to teachers, here's what matters most. We may not
Mm-hmm.
be able to stop the amount of assessments,
Right.
right?
Right.
We may not be able to stop that. And I think as a school-based administrator, you need to advocate for how you can stop that. We might not be able to stop all of it, but I will take away what I can. That's what you should say as an administrator. And I will tell you what to prioritize, right? And that's okay. Now I'm gonna add this next little piece in here to end this out. Um, I also think you inform whether it be the teachers themselves, the caregivers, the kids, you let them know that we are also going to be assessing the conditions of learning in the classroom.
Okay, stop. All right. Now you're gonna get in
Okay?
trouble.
I understand that, but
Right,
but we
right.
gotta we
But
gotta do it.
because this time of year, the outcomes that you get on the bottom line, meaning what the kids produce, quote unquote, on the test, is a direct reflection
Direct,
on the
direct,
conditions that have been created all year. So you're going to
period,
get a revelation, you're going to get an outcome number, right? You're
period,
going to get an outcome, but you're
period.
most certainly going to know were the conditions in place to get, well, yes, the conditions were in place to get the outcomes you wanted, but were the outcomes you wanted what you wanted?
That's right. That's right. So whenever I'm suggesting something that a leader does, I'm also suggesting, and I'm not saying this explicitly, but I'm going to say this now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am assuming that the teacher is also excavating self, reflecting on self of, am I creating the conditions for the teachers to learn and thrive? Because the conditions of learning for the teachers end up being the
That's
conditions of
right.
learning for the
Learning from
students,
students. That's right. It all
right?
rolls downhill. That's
It
right.
all
We
rolls
it rolls
downhill.
it rolls downhill. It rolls
It all rolls
downhill.
downhill.
You cannot have disparate expectations between, and that's part of the power dynamic as well. If you are a leader leaning into power protection of self, systems, all the
Mm-hmm,
things, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You cannot expect your educators to create agency developing
That's right.
classrooms because
That's
they
right.
won't know how to do it.
That's
They
exactly
won't.
right.
They can't make that going on. Well, look, that was the fastest 30 minutes,
Oh,
huh?
we're over
For
already?
oh, we're already. You got to
I
come
thought
back.
we
Can you
just
come
got
back?
started. Oh, yes. I thought we just got
We did just get started,
Oh,
folks.
my
This
goodness.
has been
All right.
such a joy to have Josh Parker to talk about
Thank you so
coherence
much.
and assessments and power. One thing, folks, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead, hit
Please,
that
right
like
now.
button,
Mm-hmm.
hit the share button. Remember, we're going to turn two. Josh, we're going to be two. Lesser Power will
Unbelievable.
be two in May. And so we're
Unbelievable.
asking folks to share this with two people so that they
Yeah.
can go ahead and subscribe and help us get to 200 for our second birthday. You
I
have
love
been
it.
enjoyed. Thank
Oh,
you
you
so
as
much
well.
for
Thank
joining.
you.
And folks, let Josh know that you appreciate him.
Oh,
Go
I
follow
appreciate that.
him on LinkedIn. He does
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic work. Follow
Thank
him,
you.
and he will be back. Thank you, Josh.
Yes, I
And
will.
folks, we'll see you next week. We're going to have an interesting guest next week, too. So stay tuned.
Oh, boy.
Stay
I'm
tuned.
staying tuned. Have a
All
great one,
right.
and
Have a
thank
good one.
you.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.